Animals. I am an animal. I like animals. So today, my deranged viewers, we're going to be talking about the Weird Animals Iceberg. This is a special video that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, where we will be talking about the strangest animals I could find anywhere on the planet, and I categorize them not just by weird lookingness, but also by their strange biology and overall characteristics that make some of these animals seem like they shouldn't exist on this planet. But we're going to be talking about awesome things like the narwhal, the shoebill, the flying snake, the kiwi bird, and some very strange things like the bigfin squid, unidentified creatures that have been spotted by like official organizations. But anyways, if you like animals or just iceberg charts in general, then sit back, relax, and we will go ahead and get into the video. Starting off at the top of the iceberg with tier 1, the Kakapo. So this is actually one of my favorite animals on the whole thing. The Kakapo, also known as the owl parrot, is the world's only flightless parrot. So this thing does have wings that look like they should be able to fly, but they don't. They instead just use their strong legs to hike around on the ground and then climb trees, where it then uses its wings to kind of parachute down whenever it jumps off of a tree and kind of glide where it wants to go. These things are native to New Zealand, where they are the heaviest parrot on Earth, weighing up to 8 pounds. What's really strange about them is they have this weird mating behavior where they only breed whenever this New Zealand rumi tree is masting, which means this tree is producing a large amount of fruit. What's bad about this is these rumi trees only mast every 2 to 4 years, which means these birds only breed every 2 to 4 years. Because of this, you can assume where its population is at. It is critically endangered because obviously it can't fly, and it's got one of the lowest reproduction rates of any bird. But these things are also cool because they are strictly nocturnal, only emerging at night to forage leaves, seeds, and fruit, as they are entirely herbivorous. There are only 250 of these birds remaining in the wild, which is insane. So they've tried to conserve these birds by taking them to predator-free islands and sanctuaries where they will hopefully repopulate. But there's this really funny video where a cameraman is filming this bird and it jumps on his head and starts trying to mate with the back of his head, and it's really funny, and that's like what this bird is mainly known for, is this specific video. Moving on to Indian balloon frog. So I chose this one strictly because it looks really funny. This is a weird looking frog from Southeast Asia called an Indian balloon frog. So whenever these things feel threatened, they will dramatically expand their lungs so that they appear larger to predators. But that's not something they have to deal with a whole lot because they spend most of their life underground and only emerge during monsoon season to breed. According to studies, these things range from different regions, where people like to say the southern population is apparently significantly uglier than the rest. And as you can see in this picture, I'm sure this one is probably from somewhere further south. The Saiga. We got Squidward sheep before GTA 6. This species of antelope looks extremely strange because of its massive hanging nose like Squidward. Its nose is not just great looking, but also filters out dust that gets kicked up by the herd. It warms freezing winter air that it breathes in, and it amplifies the male's mating snort sounds during its rut season. Once these animals were numbered over 1 million, but their entire species actually nearly went extinct just back in 2015 when this bacterial infection killed 200,000 of these things in days. Alright, do me a favor, pause the video right now and guess where this animal is from. I would have guessed it was somewhere in Africa, but this thing is actually found mainly in Russia, but also Kazakhstan and other areas in Mongolia. I also think this thing looks similar to that animal in Star Wars that like farts and looks back at Jar Jar in The Phantom Menace. You're welcome. I don't even know why I mentioned that, but I feel like you needed to hear it. The red-lipped batfish. So this fish is unique to the Galapagos Islands, where it is mainly known for its bright red lips. These lips are thought to help fish recognize each other, and they use it as a mating display that maybe helps attract females. What's kind of cool about like these red lips is that in scuba diving, something you learn is that the color red is one of the least visible colors as you get deeper underwater. So maybe they use this adaptation to attract mates, but then, you know, they're not as visible whenever whenever they go deeper in the water because the color kind of fades away the deeper you go. They have very few natural predators because their flesh is actually poisonous and they're not good swimmers. They actually use their pectoral, pelvic, and anal fins to walk on the ocean floor. So these things are very strange. A fish that doesn't swim. It's almost like a bird that doesn't fly. Mexican mole lizard. So this looks like a fusion between an earthworm and a snake, but it has little T-Rex hands. This is a reptile that is bright pink and completely snake-like except for its clawed front arms. It spends almost its entire life underground in Baja California, where it uses its powerful digging arms to kind of swim through the sand. And then also what's crazy about this thing is whenever it feels threatened, its skin is segmented into rings, so it can actually break off parts of its body whenever it gets grabbed by a predator. And it's so weird that there's this thing in Mexican folklore where people see this so rarely that sometimes they are mistaken for demonic worm witches that are used to spy on people and curse them. So that's fun. Tier 2, the maned wolf. So this is a tall, lanky canine from South America that is not a wolf, and it's not a fox, and it's actually not closely related to any canine species. It is the only species in its genus. This thing looks really strange. It kind of has like a humped back, kind of like a hyena, and then it has these long legs that make it perfect for seeing over the tall grasslands in South America where it lives. It stands at nearly 3 feet high at its shoulder, which is actually taller than gray wolves, and it has this reddish coat with a black mane that can be raised like a mohawk when it's threatened, just like cats do. It also has this strong smelling pee that is comparable to skunk spray that it uses to mark its territory. And what's different from this animal from other canines is that it hunts alone and its diet has a significant amount of fruit. It especially likes eating this thing called a wolf apple. Like I said, these things hunt alone and they're very solitary animals in the wild, but surprisingly, they're one of the few canine species that mate for life. So it's strange. They mate for life, and the male and female kind of operate in the same territory, but they aren't usually close together. Next, we have the Wolverine frog. Also known as the hairy frog, this is a strange frog that lives in Central Africa that has this insane self-defense mechanism. So when these things are threatened, they somehow break their own toe bones, which they then push through their skin and form these sharp claws that it will use to slash predators. No other animal in the world does this weird thing except for this hairy frog. Unlike Wolverine in the comics, this claw does not then retract back into its toe, but rather it kind of has to heal its broken bone afterwards, which is kind of a huge inconvenience. So the males of these frogs will produce this hair-like skin on their thighs that help boost their oxygen intake, where they get the name hairy frog. This increased breathing ability helps them survive and breathe better in oxygen-poor water. These things are native to South Africa, where they live in fast-flowing streams in tropical forests, which seems very fitting for such a weird creature. Largest flying mammal. So this is the giant golden crowned flying fox. It is the largest bat in the world, having a wingspan of up to 5.5 feet wide. They are so big that they are often referred to as the human-sized bat. And I mean, if you saw this thing in the wild, I totally understand why someone would mistake this thing for some sort of horrible demonic creature. This thing has a very strange dog-looking face. It is found in Southeast Asia, in countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, where it exclusively eats fruit, which is kind of a great thing, because if this thing drank blood like other bats, I would be very scared, honestly. So its massive wingspan allows it to travel at up to 54 miles in a single night when it's foraging, and unlike most bats, it doesn't have any ability to use echolocation, so it compensates by using its huge eyes and excellent eyesight. Their massive size and unusual face has led these things to being mistaken for this cryptid called the aswang, which is this creepy looking vampire like figure in Filipino folklore that is like this lady thing that is like human sized. That's basically a bat lady hybrid. So you could see where these two things come together. If you were only catching glimpses of like a human-sized bat thing flying through the sky and you never saw them up close, why not a swang human bat hybrid? Next up we have the narwhal. Narwhals are such cool animals. So these are real Arctic whales that actually do exist. I know some people don't believe they exist, but they look like a cross between a whale and a unicorn because of their long spiral tusk. This tusk is actually a modified canine tooth that grows through their upper lip, and it can reach the size of like 10 feet long. And what's crazy is this thing is a sensory organ. This tooth is packed with millions of nerve endings, and it's able to detect changes in water temperature, pressure changes, and nearby prey. It then can use this tusk to stun fish with a tap, not impaling it like a spear, but rather just hitting it. And sometimes it's rare, but males can grow 2 tusks, and some might not even have a tusk at all. But narwhals can be pretty big. They can reach 13 to 18 feet long and weigh 18 to 3,500 pounds, and they only live in Arctic waters near Canada, Greenland, Norway, and Russia. They travel in pods of about 10 to 20 of them, but sometimes they gather in these groups of hundreds. What's also cool is they live up to 90 years old, making them one of the longest lived whales on the planet. What I think is really funny about narwhals is during medieval Europe, they used to sell narwhal tusks as unicorn horns that was believed to have like magic powers. Queen Elizabeth was actually reported to have paid the equivalent of $2.7 million for 1 tusk to add to the crown jewels back in the day. And another cool thing is the name narwhal actually comes from the Norwegian word for corpse whale, and that is because whenever they saw them, they saw their white spots that were on their skin, and they made the assumption that they looked like corpses. Like whenever sailors would drown in the water, they would end up looking like this. Alright, moving on to Komodo Dragon. So this is the world's largest lizard, being able to grow up to 10 feet long and weighing over 300 pounds. Its saliva contains over 50 types of toxic bacteria and also actual venom that lowers blood pressure and prevents blood clotting, which essentially makes their prey bleed out. This lets them slowly kill prey many times their size, and as they get older, they go after larger prey like deer, monkeys, pigs, and they're actually even known to gather in groups to take down large prey such as water buffalo, which is insane because water buffalo are so large. It can eat about 80% of its own body weight in a single meal, swallowing large chunks whole, including bones and hooves, and it's able to swallow a whole bunch of food because of its ultra flexible skull and expandable stomach. It also hunts using its sense of smell, which is this forked tongue that it uses to taste the air. People like to compare its smell to like a bloodhound, and they say this allows them to track wounded prey for miles, but its sense of smell is not quite as strong as a bloodhound, but it's still very impressive. It's said that the scent of blood sends them into an aggressive feeding frenzy to the point where they actually become dangerous to people. So much so that whenever women are on their period, they're advised not to enter dragon territory. What's really crazy is female Komodo dragons can actually reproduce without a male. They go through this process called parthenogenesis, where they lay fertile eggs that hatch into exact genetic copies of themselves. However, these exact genetic copies are only male. They're not able to reproduce by themselves and create a female. Once they are born, young dragons spend the first few years of their life in treetops because adult Komodo dragons are actually cannibals, and if they get found, they'll get eaten. Moving on to tier 3, we have the shoebill. So the shoebill is this crazy dinosaur looking 4.5 foot tall stork from Africa. Despite being really menacing looking, they actually are really menacing. These things do this unique hunting technique called collapsing, where they will stand motionless for extended periods of time, where they then suddenly lunge forward with their large bill and ambush their prey, such as fish and snakes and lizards, and sometimes baby crocodiles. Their bill is the shape of this shoe that has sharp edges that can catch and decapitate prey, and they can also use their beak to do this crazy machine gun sounding mating call, which is really cool. Also on par with how I would imagine these things are, they are solitary creatures that rarely tolerate other shoebills nearby, and they also poop on their legs to stay cool. So I don't know why I added that in there, but they'll poop on themselves because they get really hot and they gotta stay cool. So I'm gonna say it 3 times. All right. Flying snake. So these snakes fly, more like glide, by launching themselves from branches and then flattening their bodies into this hollow C shape where they do this wave motion, and it can glide them up to 328 feet. This is almost the length of a football field if you're from America, which is actually further than many flying squirrels can do, which is crazy. There are 5 species of flying snakes that live in Southeast Asia, including the paradise tree snake, the golden tree snake, the banded flying snake, the Moluccan flying snake, and the Sri Lanka flying snake. Imagine walking through the forest and then you see a snake flying towards you and kind of like slithering through the air. I would immediately leave that part of the world and never go back. I mean, if you're dealing with that, oh my gosh, that is horrible. Moving on to the cave crocodile. So cave crocodiles are these weird, bright, tiny crocodiles that live in caves and eat bats. Deep in the Abanda cave system in Gabon, which is on the west coast of Africa, there is this unique population of dwarf crocodile that is nearly blind due to living in total darkness, that was found there living in these caves surrounded by horrible fumes created from wet, hot guano, which is bat poop, that covers the cave floor. This poop actually turns their skin this crazy looking bright orange color due to high levels of ammonia. They've survived. Instead of eating fish like other crocodiles, they eat bats, crickets, and other cave-dwelling creatures. And what's really cool is these things have been so isolated in these caves that they have diverged from most other species and have all these weird adaptations, like being really small, obviously, and not having to see very much, and also eating bats, which you shouldn't do as a human because of the thing that happened in the place, if you know what I mean. Giraffe gazelle. So the official name of this creature is the Gerenuk. It is a lesser known species of antelope that have these really strange long necks, and sometimes you'll see pictures of them standing up and eating vegetation higher up on a tree using their long necks, and they kind of look like what I would imagine a skinwalker looks like. But anyways, these things are native to the Horn of Africa and other drier parts of East Africa, where they have adapted this ability to reach high up in the acacia trees, like I said, standing up on their legs and using their long necks. What's funny is scientists were studying the Gerenuks, and they were following them around for weeks, and they never saw them drink water. And so they realized that they actually didn't need to directly drink water, but rather they got all the moisture they needed from the plants that they ate, which is really crazy. The blue dragon. So this is a really cool looking bright blue sea slug that is actually pretty dangerous. The slug itself is not venomous. It only becomes that way after it eats something like the Portuguese man-of-war, which is this venomous jellyfish-like creature. It then stores the man-of-war's venom in its stinging cells, making its own sting even more potent and dangerous than the man-of-war. Anyways, you can find these things around the world floating upside down in the ocean, and they're actually considered pretty dangerous. Tier 4, the Lowland streaked Tenrec. So the Tenrec is this small mammal that kind of looks like a hedgehog mixed with a bumblebee. It is covered in these yellow and black quills and only found in Madagascar, which seems fitting for such a weird looking creature. They're actually the only mammals in the world that communicate by stridulating, which means they rub parts of their body together to make sound to communicate. The sound is really cool. They rub their quills together to make a high-pitched ultrasonic ultrasound chirp. And also they have their, porcupine-like quills on their heads that they use and they like headbutt predators to defend themselves, which is awesome. It's super cool to see an animal that doesn't have horns that is just headbutting things with very little protection. I think that's hilarious. Moving on to the kiwi. So this is one of my favorite animals on this entire iceberg. This thing is awesome. This is an extremely strange, flightless bird that is found in New Zealand that only runs around on the ground and has these feathers that are like fur. They're shaggy, hair-like feathers that resemble a mammal's fur. They have long beaks like a hummingbird. And while these things are really cute and small, they're actually related to other birds that can't fly, like the ostrich and the very dangerous cassowary, which I'll talk about here in a second. Except the kiwi didn't get any of the defense mechanisms that those birds have. Rather, they are harmless and they have basically no way to protect themselves at all. And also they can't fly, which is probably pretty bad for their population. So this thing has nostrils on the tips of their beak. They're the only bird in the world that has this feature, and it hunts by smelling. Probably the strangest thing about the kiwi is that they lay an egg that is 25% of their body weight. It is so big that it literally pushes their organs around and bends their rib bones so that it can accommodate the space that it's in. This is actually the equivalent of a human giving birth to a 5-year-old child. This is massive. Anyways, these things are so funny. They run around on the ground, and whenever they fight each other, they're just kicking each other in the chest. And the best thing about them is that they have this roar that sounds like a dinosaur, which honestly makes them even more ridiculous. They turn their heads up and they roar, and they kind of look like a theropod dinosaur doing this, and I love them for this, and this makes them so much more epic. They can actually live 50 to 60 years, and they mate for life like penguins. And another cool thing is the kiwi bird is not named after the fruit, but rather the fruit is named after the kiwi bird because they look so similar, as they both have brown fur and they're round. They are pretty round. The Pacific blackdragon. So this is a deep sea fish that is arguably the world's blackest animal. It has these scales that absorb 99.5% of the light that reaches it, and they're really weird because the females can grow 2 feet long, and they have these huge scary jaws that are like fangs, but the males are tiny at just a few inches, and they don't have teeth or even a functional stomach, and they're found at 6,500 feet deep. They use this glowing bioluminescence in their body to lure prey in, and because they are so deep, they are rarely observed alive, so we really don't know much about them other than that. The golden Langur monkey. So this is an old world monkey that was discovered relatively recently in 1953 in a small region of India. This is one of the world's oldest primates. There's an estimated only 4,000 of them in the world. They spend nearly their entire lives in the tree canopy, where they rarely descend to the ground. There's this famous video of one of them, like close up, and its eyes look so crazy. It looks extremely human-like. In the video, you can see it avoiding eye contact, as some researchers say they specifically work hard to avoid human interaction. So maybe, just like humans, they are experiencing like an uncanny valley feeling, where they see humans and they look almost similar to them, but not quite the same. And honestly, if you look at them, I feel like you can kind of feel that uncanny valley effect as well, because these monkeys are so human looking. the Goblin Shark. So this is a shark that is really strange looking. It has this long protruding snout in front of its mouth that makes it look like it can't even bite or eat anything. These things hunt at 4,000 feet deep, where they just absolutely launch their mouth out of their face. Like they physically thrust their jaws 3 inches out of their mouth. It bounces out of their face and it bites whatever prey they're trying to get, and that's super weird. You know what? It's a goblin. I agree. It is the Goblin Shark. It goes goblin mode. It bounces that thing out there and eats what it's trying to eat. Anyways, these things get pretty big. They're like 12 feet long, and they could be 460 pounds, and that's all I know about them. Tier 5, the most dangerous bird. So the most dangerous bird is obviously the southern cassowary. They're basically, in real life, velociraptors. They are considered the most dangerous bird in the world, and they are considered to be the closest link between dinosaurs and modern birds. So these things are large, flightless birds that can be almost 6 feet tall and weigh around 120 pounds. They have blue faces and this crazy crest on their head that makes them look like a dinosaur. And they also make this scary noise. They can run at up to 30 miles per hour and kick super hard, which wouldn't be that dangerous if it didn't have this sharp dagger-like claw in the middle of its foot that can grow up to 5 inches long, and at least 2 people have been killed by them in recent times. Steve Irwin, there was this famous saying where he used to have one, and they called it Stomp because they said it always tried to stomp on him and kick him. And there's this famous video of him running from the southern cassowary where he has to jump over the fence and it's constantly kicking at him, and it looks horrifying. If he got stabbed by that dagger, he could literally die. Kind of crazy. This dude, he's a real one. Steve Irwin was a real one. They didn't call him the crocodile hunter for nothing. Living nesting dolls. So to summarize this without going too deep, there is this flatworm called the Gyrodactylus. It sometimes exhibits this extremely rare phenomenon where it gets pregnant with a baby that is already pregnant, creating these nesting dolls or Russian stacking dolls with, one animal inside of another, and it's really weird. And that's about all. Do you guys really want to hear a bunch about flatworms? I don't think so. Let's move on. Axolotl. Axolotls are very cool. I actually know someone who has a pet axolotl, and it is a really cool animal. So these things are not just in Minecraft. They actually do exist in real life. They are an amphibian that live exclusively in freshwater areas of Mexico City's lake, Xochimilco. They are very famous for having this ability to regenerate lost limbs and even parts of their brain and heart. They can actually regenerate the same limb up to 5 times. Do not ask how they got that number. Axolotls usually stay in the juvenile form or larva stage of their entire lives. But in rare instances, they undergo this metamorphosis process where they transform into a land-dwelling salamander. And it's really weird because they go from looking like this pink, really cool looking creature to this jet black salamander, and they lose their ability to breathe underwater. And it would really suck if you had a pet axolotl and it turned into just a black salamander that can't breathe underwater. And anyways, this is very unusual. They usually stay in their larval stage where they're able to reproduce and live like this, and they can live for 20 years, which is crazy. The ii. So the ii is considered to be the strangest primate in the world. It is a lemur that lives in Madagascar, has these large eyes and rodent-like teeth that never stop growing, and they have bat-like ears. They're the largest nocturnal primate in the world, and they have this really weird thing where they have a normal hand, but its middle finger looks like a skeleton that it uses this freaky finger to tap on trees and then reach in and extract insects to eat. And because of this, it is the only primate known to hunt using echolocation, like tapping. Also, if you've seen the movie Madagascar, Maurice in that movie is based off of this animal. the world's longest animal. So this is a lion's mane jellyfish. The longest known lion's mane jellyfish had tentacles that were 120 feet long, making it the single longest animal on the planet. Here in a second, I'm about to talk about another animal that some would consider the longest, but it's not like a single animal. Anyways, these lion mane jellyfish have this top bell shape that can be 8 feet across. They prefer living in the boreal waters of the Arctic, North Atlantic, and North Pacific Oceans, where they use their stinging cells to paralyze small prey like plankton and fish to eat. Despite their size, these things only live about 1 year, which is a really short lifespan for an animal this massive. They are mostly solitary creatures, but sometimes they can be seen in large groups called swarms. Tier 6. Echidna. So this is one of only 2 egg-laying mammals in the world, along with the platypus. This is a very strange creature that has quills like a porcupine, a beak that looks similar to a bird, and eggs like a reptile. Baby echidnas, called puggles, hatch from these leathery eggs after 10 days and then drink milk that oozes from patches on the mother's belly, because just like the platypus, they don't have nipples, so the milk just kind of comes out that way. Echidnas have this weird thing where they can detect electric signals from their prey like ants and termites, and probably the weirdest thing about them is there is this mating ritual that they do where the male echidna all line up behind the female nose to tail, forming these long trains of up to 10 echidna sometimes, and they follow the female around until she is finally ready to mate. The males then dig a trench in the ground around the female, where the males then compete in this mating ritual where they push each other out of the trench, and the last one remaining in it gets to mate with the female. It's so crazy. I don't know how anybody figured this out. I guess, if you see them all following each other around, you'd watch them and be like, oh. But it seems like such like a formal ritual that they are doing. And this animal is already really weird. Why is it acting so weird too, Bro is doing too much, honestly. No, it's super cool animal. Barking deer. So these things are called Muntjac deer. They are these really alien looking deers that have these face glands that look like nostrils that the deer can open up and turn inside out for communication and courtship. They are a miniature deer species native to Asia. The males have short antlers and these elongated canine teeth that they use in territorial fights that look so crazy. They're basically deer with fangs. They do not look like they should exist. But they're nicknamed the barking deer because they make this loud dog-like bark whenever they're alarmed. And we got alien looking deer with vampire teeth that barks like a deer. They're still out there. They still exist. It's not too late. They should still exist. I'm not saying to wipe them out. Don't wipe out an entire species. What's that called? Speciescide? Moving on. Giant siphonophore. So this is the longest animal on the planet if you count multiple animals joining together to create a colony organism. So back in 2020, this team of scientists off the coast of West Australia, of course it was off Australia, discovered this animal that was so big that it shattered the world record for the longest animal by a lot. They found this crazy looking spiral shaped animal called a siphonophore, where normally the colonies of these species measure like 10 feet long, but they found this one that's total length was roughly 390 feet long. Although it was impossible to measure the exact length of this thing, they had to guess, and they estimated it was like 390 feet long, which is... that's so big, that's massive. Massive. Massive? It's massive. What's really cool about these things is they are a permanent colony of smaller individual animals called zooids, which are kind of similar to jellyfish. When they all get together, they have different functions as part of one large creature. Like some of them just focus on reproduction. Others just focus on defense or propelling them through the water or just eating. And it's so crazy. I would probably say these count as one animal, so this is technically like the longest animal in the world, but it's so crazy. This is so alien-like. We're always looking up into space, looking for aliens all the time, when if we just look into the ocean, we will see something so weird. What the actual heck? These are so weird. Next on this list, we have the Colugo. So the Colugo is this living kite-shaped thing that lives in the tropical forest of Southeast Asia. These things are so weird that scientists didn't know what to classify it as. At first, they thought it was some sort of messed up bat, and then they named it a flying lemur and called it that for decades. And then they confused it with gliding rodents like the flying squirrel. But more recent genetic studies have showed the closest living relatives to these things are primates, but they are still not fully understood because they're nocturnal, they don't have opposable thumbs, and they're slow climbers, but they have a pouch like a marsupial. And what's really weird is they're barely able to even walk. They have to hop around in these short hops whenever they're moving around on land. Also, I guess I forgot to mention it, these things can like fly and glide. Yeah, they'll like cling to the side of trees and jump off and glide. Did you guys know these existed? I feel like nobody talks about Colugos. You're welcome. Curse knowledge. Boom! Curse knowledge. Next on this list, we have the telescope fish. So this is a strange deep sea predator that almost looks kind of humanoid-like. It's a fish with wide eyes and sharp teeth. It's found at up to 9,000 feet deep, where it uses these weird white eyes to spot glowing prey. It also can unhinge its jaw like a snake and swallow prey even larger than itself. So it makes me happy that these things are not super big. These things are found worldwide all over the ocean, but they're almost never seen alive. Other than that, like I said before, it's a super deep creature, so we don't know much about it. Tier 7, Raccoon Dog. So this is actually not a raccoon at all, but it is rather a primitive canine that can climb trees, and it's the only true canine that hibernates in the winter. These raccoon dogs are native to East Asia and have this masked face that looks identical to a raccoon, which makes them really cool looking. When they're threatened, they sometimes play dead so convincingly that predators just walk away from them. And man, they are so cool. I was watching videos of them. I thought maybe because they climb trees, they would kind of act and like move around like a raccoon. But really, they kind of just move like a very nimble dog. And yeah, Raccoon Dog. Super cool. Apparently you cannot have them as pets because they will just constantly try to get out. And if they do get out, they reproduce super fast and they can like adjust to anywhere they go. So they'd be an invasive species that would just take over an area really quick. But you know what? I love them for that, and I think they're really cool. Antarctic scale worm. So this is a horrible looking deep sea creature found in cold water around Antarctica. They have a shimmering golden mane that makes them look like a creature from another planet, and also these massive jaws, and I hate them. They can grow up to 8 inches long, and their teeth are specifically for eating meat. Do they need to exist? Probably not. Would anybody notice if they went missing? I bet you my buddy Tyler could fish them all out of the water and take care of them real quick. Do you guys you guys fish? Do you not fish, or you guys more of like trout fishermen or crappie guys? Dude, imagine you're bass fishing and you pulled a freaking 8-inch long alien fish with gold fur out, and then you're like, how the heck do I get this off my hook? You know what I'm saying? Next up, we got the platypus. So this is a mammal that lays eggs. The only other animal that does this is the echidna. The platypus doesn't have a stomach, so food passes directly from its esophagus straight into its intestines, which I don't know how that worked exactly. But the males have these venomous spurs on their heels that cause excruciating pain, and they're toxic. And they have bills kind of like a bird that are not just for feeding, but they contain electroreceptors that can detect prey movement, kind of like the echidna as well. These electroreceptors in their beak allow them to hunt underwater with their eyes, ears, and nose closed. Female platypus will dig tunnels 30 feet long next to riverbanks where they nest and lay eggs. And once they hatch, they also have no nipples. So when they produce milk, it comes out straight through their skin, and it kind of looks like they're just like sweating milk. What's really insane is these things were discovered in the 1700s, and whenever scientists in Europe got a hold of these specimens, they thought they were just a hoax stitched together. They believed they had the bills from ducks sewed onto the body of another animal like an otter or a mole, but eventually they realized that it was real. They exist, and I'm happy they exist. Also, they glow greenish under UV light, so Phineas and Ferb got it right. Perry the platypus is green, and so are regular platypuses if you put UV light on them. Mystery of Facetotecta. So to summarize, without going too deep into this one as well, this is one of marine biology's greatest enigmas. Facetotecta is this type of crustacean. So it's like a crab or a shrimp, or like a cephalopod. Despite being studied since the 1800s, it has an unknown identity, as they have never found an adult version of this creature. Its life cycle is completely unknown. Moving on to the bigfin squid. Also known as the Magnapina squid, this is one of the most mysterious and horrifying alien-looking creatures on the face of the earth. These things are known for their extraordinarily long limbs and tentacles that sit at like a 90-degree angle, giving them a ghostly alien appearance. No adult specimen has ever been collected. The only known pictures of them come from deep-sea videos, usually around oil rigs. Scientists still aren't sure exactly how they feed, what they eat, or how many species of them exist. What we do know is they are sighted super deep, sometimes up to 20,000 feet deep, which makes them the only squid to inhabit this zone in the ocean. And, you know, as this is one of the least accessible habitats on Earth because of crushing pressure, freezing temperatures, pitch black environment, it causes us to not know like anything about them. As I said, they have these crazy tentacles that kind of bend like an elbow, and these tentacles can be 20 times longer than their own body, making them 26 feet long. And it appears that they drag these tentacles or arms along the seafloor like a net to trap prey. So far, only 20 sightings of this thing has ever been recorded, making it one of the rarest observed cephalopods ever. Except for the Kraken. The Kraken would probably be the least modern day documented cephalopod, because the Kraken is real, and we need to start writing it down again, because I know people are seeing it, they're probably just not documenting it. You guys can agree with me, right? Moving on to the final tier, tier 8, Amazon river dolphins. So I put this one so far down because I personally thought these things were extremely weird and kind of unreal and kind of grotesque. Amazon river dolphins are these eerie looking freshwater mammals that are native to the rivers in South America, particularly the Amazon and Orinoco basins. They have this distinctive appearance where they have these long snouts and kind of bulbous foreheads, and also different from other dolphins, they have a flexible neck that they can use to look around, which allows them to navigate and hunt in the complex rivers and flooded forests of the Amazon. They can be pretty large. The males can get up to 9 feet long and weigh as much as 400 pounds, and they have this distinctive pink coloration that kind of varies from a dull gray color to a more vibrant flamingo looking pink. They are highly intelligent like other dolphins and very curious, often making eye contact with humans whenever they're spotted. But because they are usually hunting in dark or muddy riverbeds, they rely heavily on echolocation to navigate and hunt. Like I said before, dolphins are generally considered to be really smart, but Amazon pink dolphins are considered to be the most intelligent of dolphins, as their brain capacity is 40% larger than humans. There is this cool folklore about these things, in Brazil specifically, about how these dolphins can transform themselves into a man at night, so they're like shapeshifters, where they then go out into villages and hypnotize unsuspecting young women into loving them or something like that. Anyways, along with being kind of creepy looking, they're not always friendly. Normally they're very friendly, but very rarely on occasion they will attack humans. There was this one incident just back in 2023 where this one lady got attacked by one in Bolivia. And quick warning, if you are squeamish to blood, you might want to just skip like probably a minute ahead. What happened was there was this group of people swimming in the river where this kid then tried to pick up one of the dolphins, and this caused the entire pod to get agitated, which is, you know, understandable. They then started nipping and scratching people aggressively, where one dolphin swam up to this lady and bit onto her foot and held on for 20 seconds and ended up cutting her foot down to the bone, and she almost lost her foot. She had to get 32 stitches and it got infected really bad. Yeah, oh my gosh. That would be so scary. You're trying to swim in a river and this freaking 400-pound pink dolphin looks pretty uncanny, swims up to you and almost bites your foot off. Biker's fault though. You know what I mean? Biker's fault. Fun fact, river dolphins are actually more closely related to sperm whales than other ocean dolphins. There's your cursed knowledge for this one. Next up we have the pangolin. So the pangolin is this mammal with crazy looking scaly armor. They are actually insectivores similar to anteaters. What is so weird about these things is they literally walk on their hind legs all the time. Here's a video of it. They don't look like they're walking on their hind legs until you get down close and you look, because they're bent over so far. It's crazy to think that this would be an efficient way to move, but I guess it works for them. Maybe they're just trying to stand upright like humans, but they're not quite there yet. This is actually the world's only scaly mammal because they have these overlapping keratin scales, which is like the same material to human fingernails, that makes up to 20% of their body weight. So they're armored up. They're pretty strong. And whenever they get threatened, they will roll up into a ball to protect themselves and, you know, use those scales as a shield. Their tongue can be as long as their body, and it is long and sticky, where it's said they use it to eat up to 70 million insects in 1 year. A lot of people don't know this, but they actually have this scent spray that is this noxious smelling chemical that sprays at a glands near their butt, kind of similar to a skunk. And for some reason, they are the most trafficked wild mammal in the world because it's like a status symbol to eat them in a lot of different Asian countries. And also, they think their scales can be used in traditional Chinese medicine, but they literally have no medicinal value. Like, you might as well just eat your fingernails. But, you know, that's actually kind of bad because they are like pretty threatened of an animal, and people be out here trying to make pangolin burgers, which I bet they don't even taste that good. Like, do they really taste that good? Am I gonna go out and seek to eat a freaking armadillo? Who wants to eat an armadillo? That's crazy. I mean, surely these things would taste like that, right? Oh man, I sure can't wait to eat a possum. I can't wait to eat a skunk. Are you kidding me? Let's list a few animals we would rather eat than a pangolin. Beaver, groundhog. I'm listing animals you wouldn't normally eat, but you would rather eat than a pangolin before you would resort to eating a pangolin, which you shouldn't eat pangolin because they're not just endangered, they're like on the brink of extinction. So yeah, guys, don't eat pangolin. I gotta name one more animal I'd rather eat though. That's probably gonna make people upset. I'm sorry, but I have to do this. I'm trying to save the pangolin, okay? Whew, this is hard. This is a tough one. Whale. No. Bigfin squid. Magdapina. That's a good one, right? People will appreciate that more than a whale, right? All right, moving on to the Wolftrap Angler. All right, I'm gonna be real with you, Chief. I added this one to the bottom strictly because it looked really freaking weird, and I was like, surely this thing had some crazy lore to it, right? Guess what? It does, kind of, but there's not a lot of information on it. So this picture right here is specifically a Thaumatichethes binghami. That is the Latin name of this specific species, but it is a wolftrap angler. I tried so hard to find more information about this specific creature. It seems like it doesn't even exist. I think they just recently discovered it, and that's about it. But other wolftrap anglers are known for their unusual hunting method, where they're found in the abysmal plain in the ocean, where instead of luring from like an antenna above their head, instead, they lure from this little lurie thing that they dangle from the roof of their mouths, and they're like bioluminescent, and they attract prey, and they chomp down on it with their just terrifying looking mouths. Oh my gosh. This is my it's not my Roman Empire. This is my Hat Man. This is like the thing that I see in my room whenever I get sleep paralysis. Anyways, let's move on from there. Sorry guys, I was getting a little freaked out for a second. Poisonous mammal. So this is a Solenodon. It is a venomous, not poisonous, mammal that only lives on 2 islands in the Caribbean, Cuba and Hispaniola. So this thing kind of looks like a mouse with a long nose that's kind of similar to a possum, where if it bites you, it can deliver its venom just like a snake does, where its tooth is like a syringe, so it's like hollow inside, and it injects its venom into its target. If it bites a human, it is not lethal, but it is said to be extremely painful and last for multiple days, but it could kill an animal like a dog, like the size of a dog, which is kind of crazy. A little mouse possum thing that's like a snake. Anyways, this thing is referred to as a living fossil, as it is one of Earth's oldest mammals. Scientists claim that this thing diverged from other mammals 70-ish million years ago. So this means that it lived during the time of the T-Rex and really hasn't changed since then. What's also really crazy is the Cuban Solenodon was thought to have gone extinct, with the last one being seen back in the 1970s, where suddenly they got this video evidence of them just back in 2008 in the Dominican Republic. These things are kind of funny about that. There's been different instances where people are like, oh, these things are gone, these things are extinct, and then all of a sudden they show up and they're back, and then they bite that person's dog who found it, and then they don't have a dog. Sagami Bay unidentified creature. So this is referring to this footage that was recorded in Sagami Bay in Japan in 2010. So the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Tech Organization was doing this research dive, and at first it started off as an ordinary dive. They saw an octopus on the ocean floor, and then they saw a squid creature, and then suddenly they saw something that was very unusual and they didn't recognize. This creature appeared at the depths of 3,300 feet deep. It looks like this large, kind of like round, almost like squarish looking creature that kind of looks like a massive frog or a toad. It has eyes that are spaced pretty far apart on either side of its head and a really wide mouth. And to this day, this strange subject has never been identified. The lack of movement in the video of this thing has led to speculation that this creature was either dead or a decomposing animal, or it might just be a rock, or some people think it was just sleeping or not moving at the time. But maybe it is an undiscovered creature, and some people have even speculated and created an example of what they speculate this creature would be. And I really like this one. It looks like a kind of like a fat whale-like creature with a wide mouth, and I think this thing's kind of cool, and that would be sick if it existed. And it's really not that far out there. Like, if it was some sort of like porpoisey looking whale, kind of a beluga whale looking thing. Others think it might be similar to like a megamouth shark, which is this species of deep water shark that is rarely seen by humans. That's kind of similar to a whale shark or a basking shark. Anyways, my gamers, my animal lovers, my deranged viewers, that is all we have time for today. You guys are incredible for watching this entire video. You have the attention span of a golden langur monkey. I gotta say though, animals are super cool, but you are cooler for watching to the end of this video. But for real guys, thank you so much for watching all these long videos I've been putting out lately. You guys are making my dreams come true. I have a lot of new videos cooking up, and I'm really excited to do more. So if you guys aren't subscribed and are watching this video, please consider subscribing, but you don't have to. Only subscribe if you want to watch my videos for real. Honestly, you know what? I take it back. Don't subscribe to me. But depending on when this video comes out, I hope you guys in the US have a happy Thanksgiving, unless I put this video out late and then that's my fault, and I have to get this video out on time now if I'm saying this. But if you live in other parts of the world, I hope you have a happy fall season. What do you guys have in other countries? Is it Boxing Day? No, that's after Christmas, isn't it? Happy Boxing Day. What do you guys do? Make boxes? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, thank you guys for having special interests like weird animals. Weird animals are so cool. I love them so much. I love the kiwi. The kiwi is awesome. The kiwi is going to bounce back. And you know what else? The kakapo. That thing's going to bounce back too, even though it only gives birth every 2 to 4 years. But that's not really its fault. For real though, guys, do not eat the pangolins. Don't get bit by the solenodon because it will hurt. And don't let your dog get bit by the solenodon. But thank you guys for watching. If you want some merch, you can get your Psychopoly official merch right here. It helps out a lot. But other than that, thanks for watching. And I will see you guys in the next video. Where we probably will be another iceberg, most likely. Goodbye.